Hello and welcome to jobskillshare.org. This is a prerequisite course that must be taken before our member register for our live and self-paced IT training. What is live and self-paced IT training in jobskillshare.org? We have been training for many years, and we look for the best way to teach skills, the skills that you will actually need at work. Now, in IT, usually when we start learning skills or someone tells us to go ahead and do some type of certification like CompTIA A+, usually a lot of people go into that type of learning, and at the end when they land a job they find out too many different things or real world skills that are missing from the training. And even if it is covered in the training, usually it's a lot of theory and people lose interest. So to counter that, we have been working with our members for many years. So the first thing that we really tackle in our training is the coaching period. So to teach you the real world IT skills, we basically create the same scenario how you are going to come across trainings when you land a job. So a lot of time people land a job by just going to CompTIA or maybe some other trainings or college education, or you know someone, or luckily someone worked on your resume and now you have the job. But the most important thing in this type of trainings or skills training is it's not just landing a job. In IT, it's way more than just landing a job. You have to actually have a plan, or you will have to know these things, because the next day you're going to be solving tickets. When I say next day, that doesn't mean literally the next day, but it's going to be soon. No one's going to teach you everything from scratch. No one's going to sit with you and teach you the hardware, the software, the IP, all that kind of knowledge. It's not going to be an easy learning because it is going to be very fast-paced. So naturally, yes, you're going to learn, but it comes with a cost of stress. So what we do in this training, the first prerequisite course, which used to be live, but to save time and to make it more efficient, we basically created this full course as a coaching course. So you are going to be actually watching a video live with our members that we have already done, and most of these members have already landed jobs now. So the best thing about this is that you're going to see live interaction. They're going to ask questions, and you will feel like that is exactly what I was going to take if I was going to take this live. But to save time, we're not going to use this as a live training. So when are we going to use a live training, and when is it really important for you to take that live training? So first, when you finish this course, you're going to actually learn hands-on skills, but with a lot of talking back and forth, because in the beginning, we need to break things down for you. As a beginner, most of the things to you is very new. And the way we break things down is to really make it like you are actually working in a company. So by doing that, you are going to learn the skills that are actually in demand in the market right now. So you're not going out there and studying a 3 months long course in the beginning and still not getting a real world skills, because a lot of people will have to finish theory first, which is a fine way of doing it, but that's not our way or method of our way, because we want to teach you real world skills. So when you finish the coaching period, which is still going to be a long course, it's going to be practical. If you want to make it practical, yes, you will have to then invest into our labs or your own home labs to make it practical and to take the most out of this. The next phase in this training is actually live training with an instructor for 2 days. Now, instructor knows that you already went through a pretty good coaching course. And here, instructor can then focus on some of the things that are going to be little advanced and modern that is not going to be in coaching. And it's going to be more hands-on and technical, and you're not going to get stuck in something very basic. So by combination of these two, and then instructor sharing his or her knowledge, you're going to be job ready in a very short time. So this is the approach that we're taking for phase one. The prerequisite is your coaching course, which is this course that you need to finish. Then you have a live teaching course, which is 2 days. And with that, you're going to get a lot of knowledge. So now you're mentally ready. You know how things are happening in the current market. You know the current skills. Yes, you will not become an IT professional at all. No, we do not claim that, because you cannot become an IT professional in a few days. You do need to learn properly, and you do need to spend time in IT to become an IT pro. And how does that happen then? That's where the training, after the training, the development, and basically learning more from a self-paced learning that we have. We have partners like Testa, we have partners like Practice Labs. We are ourselves, we have such a great real world skills videos, labs, and the approach is just amazing because we have the best in the market right now. So what we did in phase 2, you're going to have 2 months access to the testout.com CompTIA A+ course. Now this is where you will sit down and you will basically invest that time to learn the theory, the IP addresses, everything in a very detailed way. Because if you would have landed a job in phase 1, which is this one, and then you started working, yes, you're going to be very comfortable because you know you're a part of a community and a platform that can really support you, but still you're going to need to learn things, and to learn things you need to invest more time. And the way we do this is a pretty great thing over here, because we don't just do this as a live training then, because we know it's going to take time. And that's where testout.com have videos, simulations, and then it will test yourself with quizzes. And for us, when you are a part of this live and self-paced training, you're going to be basically pushed to finish this training. And how is that going to happen? You're going to register for a live training. Now you're a part of this whole training. And in these 2 months, you're going to be given weekly assignments. And that weekly assignment needs to be finished on a certain time, which you're still going to have that flexibility to sit on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, but you have to finish that assignment, that module in that week. So that's the beauty of phase 2, because now you have a practical approach, you have a theoretical approach, and then you have simulation where you can actually do some practice, and that is more targeted. So Instructor is still watching you, but not live. Instructor is knowing that, okay, after the live training, you're doing pretty well, so they can jump in anytime to tell you that you're either missing on your modules or you need to basically finish certain things. So let's say you got a job even in phase 2 now, Instructor can change things for you and tell you to go from here or there. They can really help you. That is the beauty of this training. Now, by doing all of this stuff, coaching, training, knowledge, learn, that's skills right there. You are already skillful. So consider yourself to be more skillful than a person who is going to land a job with none of this stuff. And let's say how I explained that people can get a job, luckily in IT, one way or another way. People can get, that's just the reality. So if someone have gotten a job, yes, they're going to be way more stressful than you, because you already have a pretty good base, your knowledge is solid, and now your skills are getting better with the testout.com. Okay, so that is the best way and approach that we have found out, and the best way to really help you, because we're not rushing into things. We're not investing 15 hours in 4 or 5 days live, and then teacher is exhausted, you're exhausted. So yes, those type of training worked in the past. Those were great, but still, that was the only drawback was the time and how much energy was invested. And not much can be grabbed when your mind at certain points stop working. So this is where you become very, very skillful by using this type of training. Now that's not it in JobSkills Share, because JobSkills Share is such a big platform where then you have 1 year access to our practice labs as a part of this training. And then you have our own videos that we're currently developing for you to get better and better and better in IT. Like I said in the beginning, you will not become an IT pro with just a few weeks of learning. You are going to actually become an IT pro when you learn things, when you become skillful, when you land a job, and then you develop in that job, and that is then become an experience. So a lot of time you counter experience with skills, you counter experience with the knowledge that you share in interview, and people accept that, people respect that. And that's where when we tell people that you can apply to a place where it says 2 to 3 years preferred for experience, then you say I already know these things. Because in normally this is not a normal way of learning IT. A lot of people don't know this stuff. And a lot of people don't teach this stuff because it takes a lot of effort, a lot of access, a lot of partnerships. So it's not easy for someone to give you this type of training. So I would definitely take advantage of this type of training. Our cost is also pretty good compared to what's outside. So you should do your research on the cost side. And if you're interested in this training, make sure to contact our support, and also make sure to understand what you're getting into, because you're going to be investing a lot of time, a lot of practice, hands-on, and that is our target, to make you a real IT pro. Yes, you are going to learn a lot related to certifications, but still that is not our focus. When you finish this whole training, you're actually going to be ready for CompTIA A plus training certification. You can go for certification because Test Out is totally preparing you towards that. And then when you are doing development, career development, your access to job skills share is also focusing a lot on that side. So your labs, your CompTIA A plus partner portal courses. There's so many courses that we have. Yes, it is going to prepare you for that, but our main goal is to make you job ready and to make you less stressful in this career, so then you can always grow and move up in this career as a sysadmin, as a network admin, as a cloud admin. You want to then move up from just an IT support position. Thank you, and now the course will continue. You should really finish this course because it is a prerequisite. You both see my screen. Let me just open that and start resume my screen. So there you go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. All right. So before I get into explanation of this whole training and how this is conducted, what we need to do is to get your training first, get your introduction first, just a basic introduction, so my trainers also know about you a little bit. And this way we can just get into this whole flow of how this is going to be conducted, the full training and everything. So let's start with Layla first. Layla, just give us a little basic introduction about yourself, and then we can move on to Eddie, okay?
Okay, so deals with audit, tax, and advisory. So my role pretty much is handling new hire orientation. I also deal with renewal permits for all the audit, tax, and advisory team. And I also deal with expense report for audit, tax, and advisory, and pretty much handle all the conferencing services for all the other offices. And I'm really interested to switch to IT, and mainly because I've worked with the IT team to handle all the technology equipment in all the conference rooms. And so I have developed interest in that area. And so that's why I would like to switch to IT.
Now, so based on, like, I'm sure you did some research outside. I mean, what made you take this course? Like, what was the kind of like, okay, I'm going to really go for this training? Because there's so much available. People have tell you, oh, can you do this on yourself too? You can spin up your own labs and everything. What made you really take that decision that you need someone to actually guide you?
Oh, that's a good question. So I've been looking around and I've seen most of them pretty much give you the theory part of it. But when I looked more into job Skillshare, I feel like you guys offer more to do with what's out there in the real work. So that's why I was interested in registering with you guys, because I feel like you guys have a lot to offer in terms of what's out there. And the little I've learned from outside, it's pretty much doesn't necessarily relate to what's applicable in the offices. And so I've been looking around and I feel like this is the best choice for me. And that's why I went with the JSS.
All right, yeah, and I think that's kind of like the reason most of the people will come to us, because they want that hands-on, but they also, like, some people do have a little bit hands-on in their home labs and everything, but then some people just get stuck, like, okay, even home lab becomes a little
stressful environment for them, that how do you really start, and how do you know these things? Before that, you need someone to guide you. So yeah,
Yes.
that's a lot of the
And
people work.
yes, I did reach out to other institutions, but I feel like, it makes perfect sense as to why I should be with JSS as compared to other institutions, because I feel like they did not, deliver what I was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the things that even somebody called us, remember, even I was telling you to make sure you do your research
Yes,
before you
yes.
even invest in here.
Right, I did.
We don't
I did
want you,
lots of
yeah,
research.
that's good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
Then that makes us comfortable, because then when we're training, it's easy to train people while your mentality is set to it, so it's a
Right.
very good thing that people are doing that. Eddie, give us a little bit introduction about yourself. Leila, thank you so much, and let's go in with Eddie and see where you are.
Yeah, I'm originally from New York City. I live in Los Angeles. I've been bartending for over 20 years, but I have a mechanical engineering degree and a data processing associate degree. I was
Wow.
good. It's a long story, but I'll go on forever. So I'm going to give you the short version,
Okay.
which is hard for me. But I have so I've always had, I was the first guy in my building to have a computer. I'm 53 years old. So I can
Man,
go
you
back.
don't look 53
Man,
at
you
all.
look 35.
Yeah, thank you.
Honestly, I look almost like, I was like, maybe you're at my age or something. Wow, that's amazing.
So, I bought a PC clone. I wanted to be, I thought when I was in high school, I was in a IBM program, after school program when I was 17, 18 years old. IBM in New York had a little course for minorities. And I always had an interest in computers. I wasn't like a geek guy. I just liked computers. So I took the IBM little class after school once a week, but they didn't really teach us much, but it was cool to say I'm in an IBM program. So then I said, well, I don't know what to study. So then I thought, well, I'll be a computer programmer. So I learned like very old languages like COBOL, BASIC.
COBOL. Hey,
I
you
know.
know about COBOL now? Maybe there's one company that's looking for that one COBOL developer, whatever, and they'll pay you like tons of money,
It's crazy. So I got a 2-year associate degree in data processing because, PCs just came out when I was in college. People were still doing a key punch, key punch cards.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I was lucky. Had I went to school one semester before, I would have had to do the freaking key punch card thing. So I got to use the first IBM PCs. And then I graduated with a 2-year degree in data processing, and I was pretty good at it. At least I thought I was, but I realized that wasn't for me. I could tell I was kind of different from the other students. They were more book guys. I was more kind of like, you can see I'm very social.
Yeah, more hands-on.
I'm at ease talking. So then I got a mechanical engineering degree from a 4-year college in New York City. And then I realized I didn't like that. So then I worked at a law firm, and I always used to gravitate towards the IT guy. I was like, oh, who's this guy? He's just hanging out in the room. And so I got my CompTIA, my Network Plus, and I was studying for the Security Plus. And then I realized, what the hell am I studying all these certifications for? I know book knowledge, and you said it in one of your videos. I got a CompTIA, the A+ Network Plus, but I have a lot of book knowledge, a lot of theory, but I don't have any practical skills.
Because if you remember, the premium membership were mainly designed for people who wanted to go for certification. So those labs were designed specifically for certifications, not for our main content that we did for free. Remember, like 2017. And then it takes so much time to do this whole thing again that we just kind of gave up on it. We're like, okay, we're just going to do live more. And that's where the things kind of got kicked in. And the premium is still a really good membership, because you now both of you have premium, by the way. When somebody buy a live training becomes a premium, or if you are a premium, that we lower the price down for you. So it works for both people at the same time. But the thing is this, that at some point you're going to do this circle basically. So you learn everything, and I'm going to explain that right now. It basically goes back to the content, and by then we might have upgraded content, because a lot of people learn a lot from live training, but they may later on find something, oh, you know what, I should go back to that video over there, right? So it's a continuous learning. But we'll get into that. We'll do the whole flow because this is a choice that you made right now. And this choice is a very much involved choice, meaning you have to be involved in two ways, basically. You have to be working with us and we will be working with you. So a lot of patience, a lot of, a mental acceptance of something that, there's future out there, but it does require work right there. So I'm sure you both are mentally prepared for that because you're starting something that requires that, right? Without that, it's not possible.
And at first, it's going to be a bit overwhelming, but I would say don't get discouraged. We're here to answer all your questions. A lot of times people get overwhelmed by all this stuff, but like Danish says, it's always changing. So we can do our part, then you have to do your own part too, which is do your own research. And Eddie, you said you have a lot of book knowledge, which actually is going to help you a lot more after you're done with this. So you're already a step ahead. So just don't get.
It's definitely going to kick in. It's definitely going to kick in. When you get into this whole training and you're doing the hands-on, at some point, some of the things will start making sense to you, and it's a good thing. You invested that time. It's good. For Layla, she's going to do this, and then she will kind of come back to the theoretical side later on. So both ways, it's going to work. All right. So let's officially start this. This is a good introduction right here. And so the first thing we want to talk about is the training flow, just to see that bigger image of what we are doing right here, where we are and how we're going to proceed into this training. And then we will do this more in PowerPoint phase 2. And also I want to do just the visual because you already seen this before, right? You were registering and this is the page that you registered from, right? So this is where you are right now in phase 1. In phase 1, what we call this phase is a mental breakdown, basically a mentally breaking you down into realistic IT world, IT examples, labbing, answering questions. A trainer is there for you. So you're doing back and forth, right? So this is why you're paying for this training, because that's not something that you can see in premium, right? Even if somebody paid for premium, we don't know about this. So this phase is very important. This phase is basically like you're crossing a bridge to your destination, right? But that doesn't mean that you can cross a bridge with somebody, right? Like we are taking you and putting you in that destination. We're taking you to that destination. But if I leave you from that where you're starting, let's say I say, I'm not going to take you anymore. You're going to start finding out more things in your real life, right? That's how real world works, right? If somebody walked you somewhere, you feel like you have done it. But if you're walking it yourself alone another day, then you feel like, oh, there's too many things missing right here, right? So this is where when we finish phase 1 with us, we give you phase 2. And phase 2 is what I'm basically saying is in phase 2, you're going to be very much involved in very detailed learning, like operating systems. And we basically use testout.com. I'm sure you've probably seen that in our full video too. When we give you that access after phase 1, then you are basically given labs in that. And that's kind of like one course, but it's very targeted towards operating system, because in our live training, we don't teach tiny, minor things. We only teach the things that is really important for your job, like ticketing or Active Directory or deployments or Azure now or Office 365. That's something you're going to get a call right away. But of course, inside the operating system, you may come across something that will be a ticket. So for that, phase 2 is almost 2 months or two months, or you can finish it in 1 month if you're fast, right? So phase 1 and phase 2 is your education, your hands-on, your labs, your theoretical learning, whatever that is, everything is included in phase 1 and 2. While you're in phase 2, we're working on your resume. So the resume is basically this right here. We're going to give you this resume, right? Now, if you're going to use this resume, of course, you have to be able to talk about this, right? You cannot really just use this resume without learning all these things. Right now, if I ask both of you, by looking at these areas of expertise, how much do you know about these right here? If I ask you, Eddie, since you have done some certification, if I ask you about how much do you know about Active Directory user management?
I think from watching videos and stuff, I think I'm able to add users and change passwords, reset passwords. However, Office 365 management, I use Google, the Google suite.
Okay.
So yeah, but most of that, maybe Active Directory user management and help desk ticketing and the manage virtual machines and
so that's going to definitely help you. That's going to definitely. But after this training, this shouldn't be like a gray answer. It should be like, I know this, right? Hey, let me do this right now, because you have done that in the lab. You have created the whole domain controller and everything by yourself. Then your answer is going to be a little different, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure, Leila, at this point, you may be a little bit kind of like, okay, maybe I don't know this, right? Or
No, have no idea.
so our training is not going to be like, we're not based on books. If Eddie knows, then we're not going to teach you. We're going to still teach you from scratch all the way to the end. So what this is going to help you at the same time, this is like after this training, you're basically using this resume, and then your answer right now, and I recorded this, right? Because I'm recording all this stuff. Your answers will be changed after this. Okay, so that's kind of like the main goal that you guys are going to be doing then. Now, another main important part is that when you are taking this training, a lot of people are stuck in this experience side of it, right? How can I show experience on my resume? Yeah. Now, of course, this is where we're very different from other companies, because we already have a technical company and we own it, DMV IT Solutions. Now, in DMV IT Solutions, we don't have the ability to give you a physical access to, let's say, come and work with us for 6 months or 3 months or 2 months or whatever that is. We don't have that. But we are a product company. This means we're still a technical company, so you can still use that product name on your resume, because we're going to say, okay, can you go to our product application and just do something in there, just play around with our product. So that value right there is very huge for you, because that takes out this whole confusion that I don't have nothing on my resume. What can I show? Even after training, people are confused and they find it a hard time because what? They don't have something to show, right? So these are the things that the whole part of this training is like the whole packages that comes with it, makes it a complete training. So yesterday, just to give you an example, one of our member studied for almost 2 to 3 months, probably almost 3 months, and he landed a job in Amazon as a technical associate. That's yesterday, and I put it on YouTube. This is the second person who landed a job in Amazon from us, which I'm feeling very happy about that. So what I'm basically saying and implying in this training is that this training is very realistic training. We will never tell you that you are going to be IT professional after phase 1. Or even phase 2, still you're not going to be an full IT professional. But you're going to have so much knowledge and so much hands-on knowledge that you're going to be like these people that are landing jobs, because that is what's required from you, right? You need that 2 to 3 months of effort, hands-on effort, back and forth effort. And if I show you the WhatsApp messages, these are 2 months long messages between me and my members, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So do know that this requires a lot of work from your end and from our end too. So it's not one way. If we see that you're not responding to us, or you're not, for example, like after phase 1, I send you a message that, did you finish your labs? And you never opened your labs. I'm sure my dedication towards you is going to be very minimal, right? Because this is not what I'm expecting. Expecting that if you have finished phase 1, then you can do phase 2 easily. So from here on, the first concept that I like to teach, because when I start my training, this is where everything gets started, right? So we are getting practical right now. So we need to understand, if you're doing a lab somewhere, if you have to do something in your office, most of the people these days are using virtualized environments. So the first thing is we need to understand the concept. So this is going to be a little theory right here, okay? Mm-hmm. So here you go. Let's say, for example, this is a building, okay? This is a building, and back in the days, what happened is that a lot of people, let's say, for example, we have in the building, we have Office 1, Office 2, Office 3, Office 4, Office 5, Office 7. So let's say we have many, many offices in this building. So to basically manage all of these offices right here in this building, we needed a server, right? That's a management server, right? So let's say, for example, this is a big server that my CEO told me to buy. And so what we're going to do with this server, we're going to start managing these servers, these machines from this server. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So back in the days, when we did this technology and we're still using it, we were buying what? We were buying hardware, meaning we went to Dell and we say, hey, we need let's say 250 GB RAM server and with 1 TB hard disk, whatever, and we need that physical server. So what happened is that if I needed to buy more things, or if I need to expand my other services, I need to buy more hardware. So now you can imagine how many more hardware I need to buy now, right? Can you imagine that, how our data center is growing? Now let's say these are all the servers. And forgive me, my bad drawing is really bad, right? But I'm trying to make sense of it, okay? So we got this hardware all over in our data center to manage so many different type of machines, services. It could be a website, it could be a file server, whatever it is, right? But then we need that hardware. So someone came out with this cool idea, and they're like, why do you really need all of this hardware in your building? Why can't we buy a very powerful hardware? And let's say this is, again, a very powerful hardware, and we're going to virtualize it. So inside this server, they will put an operating system or a system that can make that server virtualized. What that means is that if it has 256 GB RAM, that RAM can be splitted. That can be split into different type of servers. So this server can hold a virtual server inside a physical server. So Leila, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So that is the concept of virtualization. And these days, if you're going to work in a company as an IT professional, you cannot even do anything without knowing virtualization, because companies now don't buy hardware, right? They don't buy like separate hardware for smaller services like Active Directory, domain control. These are not smaller services, but in terms of its resources, it's small. So what they will do is they will buy a server, a big server, and then they will put operating system in a virtual server, and then they will put Active Directory inside this one server right here. They're going to put, let's say, file server right here. So right now you don't understand some of these things because this is where we're going, so don't worry too much about it, okay? But try to understand what I'm basically presenting here, what virtualization is basically, okay?
Danish,
So, yes.
how do I ask a question without interrupting you? Do I raise my hand? I don't want to yell out, hey. Yeah.
Okay. So every time when I finish a flow, you can just stop.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
for example, if I'm leaving this slide and I'm in the middle, of course, then I would like to finish that. Then as soon as I finish this slide, like, okay, now do you understand this? That's where you just basically ask me a question.
Can I ask a question? I mean, I think I know the answer and you explained it. You know, with the CompTIA and all of that stuff. So before virtualization, you needed a separate computer or server for every thing?
Yeah, so a virtualize is what? It's basically, let's say, a physical server, and inside that physical server, there is a system. A system is provided by who? Like say companies like VMware, it's a big company, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft use Hyper-V. So these are different type of companies. Citrix, they have their own, right? So there are different type of companies, they have their own products. But at the same time, you need the hardware. Like Dell, you still need a Dell server. You still need an HP server. You still need an IBM server. So or Cisco server. So they give you like a very expensive server. You take that, you put it into your data center, right? And in that data center, then you will bring that virtualized software, right? Operating system, you put it into that server, and that system becomes virtualized, basically.
Okay.
So then you can tell that system that I need a 2016 server. So give me this much memory, this much space, this much CPU, which we're going to do that right now in a second. So then you have that one server inside this whole big server. So one server can hold, let's say, 50 servers, as long as you have the ability.
Wow.
Does that make sense to you, all of you?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Wow.
so Danish,
Yes.
so before we used to buy separate servers for firewall, web, and all that. But now we're using one main physical hardware. And inside those hardwares, we're putting these different servers.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Now, remember that there are different pieces of IT that doesn't come in virtualized, meaning even they even can, like firewall. Firewall people don't buy a virtual firewall. They will have a hardware like an ASA or something. Maybe I might have something here.
Okay, understood.
So I like to keep these things with me just to show you, and they're heavy. Sometimes I have a hard time picking these things up. So this is a firewall, right?
Okay.
This is a hardware. So this is not going to be inside this server.
Right.
This is a separate hardware controlling your security, right? And who's going to be managing this stuff? A person like who has security knowledge, like Hadi or maybe Ali, or somebody who has more security knowledge that they can understand the networking and stuff like that. That's not going to be your job right here, right? You're not going to be managing this device right here, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so now if you look at this right here, this is like a motherboard and a whole CPU. Let's consider this is a physical server, and it's very powerful. Let's say it has, let's say, 2 TB or 5 TB space storage, and this has, let's say, 256 GB RAM. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a USB, put it in here, and install that virtualized operating system that a vendor gave me, VMware, or maybe if it's a software-specific virtualization, then I need to put a server on it first, and then the virtualization will start. So inside this big hardware, I can put virtual systems, virtual server 1, server 2, server 3, server 4, server 5, server 6. So are you guys getting the point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So virtualization is basically that, but it's very important for you guys to understand because these days we just can't live without it, right? And that was not the part before. Like you would have to start doing your A+, they had no virtualization, and there's still there very minimal virtualization type of lectures in there, okay? So virtualization is clear, right? So you're going to go to your server, and that server right now, you're going to be like thinking, how am I accessing my server online? Like, is this, what is it? Where is this server? So this server is exactly in our data center, right? In our own data center where we own these servers. So the internet connection is coming to this server, and we went in there and basically we opened the port to you. What is the port right here? All of you look at your look at the link right here on the top. Which one is the port right here in this whole link? Can someone tell me?
UI, is it?
Is
it
the port 30 or 8009?
8009, isn't it? Reserve 30. 8009 would be the port.
Yes, and before that, everything, our server 30.jobscuteshare.org is what? It's a domain.
Right. So 30 would
The
be
root domain of this is what? Jobscuteshare.org, but the subdomain is what? Our server 30.
okay.
Right? So I own jobscuteshare.org. That's what? That's the main domain. If somebody show you something like this and they want to test you in your interview, these are basic questions you're going to come across as in phase 2, basically. They're going to ask you, what is a domain in this link and what is a port in this link? So you're going to say the domain in this link with the subdomain is our server 30.jobscuteshare.org. Then there's a column, right? These two columns that represent what? That after this, there's a number out there, and that number is 8009, and that's the port. So through our internet connection, everything is going inside this computer somewhere locally, somewhere in the cloud, doesn't matter. Through the connection, you're hitting an IP address. From that IP address, you're knocking the door and you're saying 8009, are you the right person? Are you available? And through the 8009 in my firewall, I'm going to say, yes, Leila, you can get into this system, and then my system opens up. You see that? Does it make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So once again, Danish, so our server is you guys' server. That's Job Skills. That's share server. That's our server 30. That's you guys.
That's us, exactly.
Now the port is 8009. That's the port you're trying to log into, or you're trying to get to, or get access to.
Yes, and that system, that server is available through this port. Now this server is physically somewhere sitting. I can directly log into that server by going hands-on, meaning like in front of it, right? Or I can say I have a web access open to it, so then that's where you're going to log into it, right? So then you have the username and the password given to you in your community section right here, right? It says root, and then the password is going to be available in your own. So all of you have a different password right here, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm going to log into it right now. So a little bit troubleshooting and to understand how this lab works. If something, let's say, for example, you open this link for a long time and you use your username and password and it's not coming up, you just need to refresh your browser because it's a session-based, right? The session gets expired. You need to just refresh it, okay? Yeah. So now look at what's happening right here. Let's understand this whole thing from here to do the learning right here. If you look at it on the left side in virtualization, the host is what? The host is the physical representation of that server. And it's on the right side, you have the information right here. The host is your physical server. And in this screen, it says that your physical server is how many GB RAM? 30. And in this physical server, how much do you have this CPUs available?
8 CPU.
8?
8
Okay.
CPUs. Now, if you look on the top right here, it says the VMware, this right here. So for this right now, you don't need to worry about it. Like right now, what's happening is this. It's going to get more advanced if I try to get in more. I don't want to confuse you guys. Right now, there's one big server that has a lot of RAM in there. And in that server, we're giving you a specific portion. And that portion is this, what you're getting right now, that 30 GB RAM, 8 CPUs. So then you can do whole lab in there, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, one question on that, Danish.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So we're given 30 GB RAMs individually, right?
Individually.
And it's timed.
It's not timed. That's why this is a good question, actually, because most of you are premium members right now. So you have practice lab access, and that is a very powerful access. But the problem with practice lab is it's only 60 minutes each lab, right?
Right.
So when you get in, you do something, and those labs are not designed and they're not open, like fully open, meaning you have to follow their directions to do something, to learn something from their lab. And after 60 minutes, it goes away. And if the machine is restarted, all your work is gone, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that learning is really good in terms of what you're going to be targeting. Like, for example, targeted learning. Like you really got to do this part, and then you're not worried about nothing else.
Oh, okay.
Here you're creating the whole network from scratch. So it wouldn't make sense for us to give you a 60-minute session, right? Like, let's say we do a lab right now, and after 60 minutes, you're like, man, I'm not even started, and this whole thing is gone, right? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So we give you an open access to net, open access to 30 GB RAM, however you want to use it, but you still got to follow our training, right? For how many days? 30 days.
30 days.
So you do your training today and tomorrow, then you have a week to finish my training again through the recording. Then you have another Saturday, Sunday coming, right? You do another training, and then you have another week to finish your training. And the last days are for you to come and play around with the server, like mess it, crash it, do whatever you want to do with it to learn more, right?
Yeah.
So it gives you a very relaxed, hands-on access. You don't have to worry about, okay, my things are going to go, and none of that, okay? Okay, so now we are getting into the real, so right now the whole thing is almost started, like we are talking about real stuff here. Because without this, if we start getting into more operating system, domain controllers, or how that things are working, it won't make sense to you. You will be confused at how these things are running right now, right? We don't want to do that. That's why this whole thing was discussed to you in the beginning. And in the beginning, almost all of my training phase ones are very much like I'm talking a lot. The reason for that is that I have to give you that understanding of what is happening over here, okay? So one thing I request from you is that if you don't get something, don't worry too much. You have too many days, you have almost 2 to 3 months with me to get something, really nail it down. So nothing to worry over here, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and basically delete these virtual servers because you don't have that in your server. So we're gonna start from scratch. Okay, so before we get into now the virtualization and what we are going to install, let me take you to how we are going to do our training. Let's go ahead and open this. All right, so you must be looking at this documentation. You'd be like, what is that, right? So whenever we start our training, we start it in a real format like ticketing. How you're going to get hired, what kind of tickets are you going to get in the beginning. You know, this is how we kind of make our training work with you. So day one is like this. You got hired by a company, okay? Mm-hmm. So you got hired by a company as a what? User support technician. And you're going to be doing their technical stuff. So we're going to remove this remote intern from here. That was for another user right here. So you went out there, you apply for a job, you look at the descriptions, and they called you, and now before you, there's certain things that happens in the company for you to understand how this whole networks are basically created, right? Like you don't just jump in there and create domain controllers or servers on your own. There got to be somebody else who's giving you access so you can do your job, right? But for you to do your job easily, you need to understand what are you working on. So what am I saying here? So let's say I'm a CEO and I have this company with 10 people, and I need to expand this company and I want to bring some management into my company. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hire a systems administrator, right? A system administrator is who controls the data, the data center, the servers, and more of the, like a little bit upper level stuff, right? So the system administrator tells the CEO, it's like a story basically, that I need a help desk with me because people are coming and walking to me and they're like, hey, can you reset my password? Can you install a software for me? Look, I'm not going to do all this stuff while I'm doing my own work. I have a lot on my plate right here. So I'm saying, can you do can you hire somebody? So my CEO goes out there and say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go out and put some, like a description out there. So let's go ahead and open this right here to give you a little more understanding here. So this is how the description will look like when you guys are applying to the job. So I like to start with the title first to understand the titling process. So can you guys tell me what this means? Help desk support technician entry level. If you see this after my training, will you apply to this position or not?
Yes.
Also will.
Yes.
Yes, right? Because it says what? It says help desk technician entry level.
Entry level.
So I am the CEO. I went out there. I told my HR people to put this in the description and go shoot it out in Indeed.com. And you went out there and you start applying to it. Then you saw something like this. Help desk technician. Will you apply to this position?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes,
Work
great.
ethics,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. What about this one?
The specialist. Not
Yeah.
This is a tricky one. Eddie, you probably heard me before. That's why you're saying yes to that. Okay, Leila, what do you think? We're going to apply to this position or not?
I think I would.
Because it says specialist, it doesn't mean titling means nothing in IT. Titling is all kind of like somebody just sat down there and let me call you a user support technician specialist, right? It doesn't matter at all. What matters is that when you look at the description and if they're talking about helping a user, resetting a password, installation of a software, maybe printer stuff like that, or maybe troubleshooting, anything that has to do with IT, you apply to it. It doesn't matter. Now, only one place is if they say you must have a security clearance because of the specific nature of this job, then maybe no. If you have a clearance, then you can go for it, right? But if they put something that you must have this or else we're not even opening your resume, then yeah. But even if they put preferred, 1 year experience, 2 years experience, it doesn't matter at all. You just need to shoot out your resume. And that's how our people got jobs, because they apply to 50, 60 places, let's say blindly applying to these positions, right? I'm not saying blindly, but title. They don't care about title, right? Because some people would put a crazy title like this: desktop support specialist, and what they're calling you specialist, and on the other side they're calling you level 1. Doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So the reason I kind of showed this before this, because that's where our training is designed. Like, we are going with this flow right now. We're hiring you right now, right? If you're going to go work in somewhere, you got to basically do that real stuff right away. So as soon as you get into the job, then they're going to start asking you, can you go and join that computer to the domain? Can you work with that person with the permissions? And I just trained somebody. He already got the job before he came and did the training because of that, stress and thinking that, oh, I got the job, what do I do now, right? So he found our platform, we trained him, and he called me, man, whatever you taught me about Active Directory, whatever you talked to me about the software installation and how you have done it, the permissions and everything is exactly what I'm doing right now. Day two. So you're going to get hit with these things right away as soon as you start working. And I'm sure, Leila, you're working as an accountant. How many times you call your IT for access or installation of softwares or something like that? You see, it's very reactive. You got to know that, right?
Yeah.
So now, we put the description out there. Let's say we hired you in our company. What's next now? So the next part is where we are going to put our phase one is all about this next part is about work group and a domain connected environment. So what are we talking over here? How many of you know the differences between a work group versus domain? Can anyone give me an answer?
I think, I mean, I've seen a lot of your videos. I think that the work group is like what small home network, Windows Home, those are home work groups. And then I think when you're like a Windows professional or stuff like that, or you're using Windows Server, then you have that's a domain. They're kind of the same, but I think the work group,
okay,
there's like a little one. You have like a local ad hoc network.
Yeah, so let's do a little bit of a theory explanation because I think Layla is probably confused right now, right, Layla?
Yeah, I'm lost.
Okay, so Layla, whenever you're lost somewhere, you gotta make sure you gotta stop me and tell me, can you show me a little theory behind it? Because it's gonna make sense to you then, okay?
Okay.
So here is another, just like what we did with virtualization, now virtualization is something that has done, right? Somebody came in, they put the hardware, a systems administrator start doing their stuff and everything. Now a system administrator is given a task to create a network, a domain connected network. Even before that, there's something else going on. So let's talk about that. Okay, let's create a whole network in a diagram right here. So we got this building, and my CEO have this one office with, let's say, 20 people, 20. Then we have another office with 20 people. I'm not going to draw 20 again, but I'm just going to show you right here. 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. That's a lot of people, Leila, right? I mean, if you are going to support these 20 desktops out there or laptops, if somebody call you that I'm having an issue, right, or I need to install a software, do you really think you can go to these so many different machines without having some kind of management?
No.
No, right? So basically, for this type of management, we need a domain network, right? A domain network is what? We have a server, just like that. I'm saying like a real big hardware. And in that hardware, let's say we have this virtual server, which you guys are using for your lab as well. And then there's another virtual server. But I'm going to say we're going to make this first virtual server a domain server. A domain server has something in there, and I'm going to make it very user-friendly. I'm not going to use a technical term here. I'm going to call this a king. Does that make sense to you? We're going to say in this network, we're going to create a king, and that king has, let's say, something very important that they can manage all of these machines from one single place. That's called management, right? Central management from one single server. Does that make sense to you, Leila?
Yes.
Now, in that server, that thing that we're talking about makes that management works is called Active Directory. In that server, we install this Active Directory role. It's like a little feature or role, like it's like a powerful feature. And then that server is basically then given kind of powers, rights, to then basically manage all of these machines in your network all the way from here. Like it's just all these 20 machines right here, all these 20 machines from one single server are being managed. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, what is a work group in work group? Now, if I buy this from Best Buy, and I buy this laptop, I bring it home, Leila, and I basically log into it. I put my username and password. Do you think that, let's say tomorrow your brother comes to your home and picks up that laptop, can he log into that laptop? Without you sharing your username and password, can he log into this laptop?
No.
No. So let's say in your home, you have 5 more laptops that you have bought, and you put, let's say, different username and password. Can your brother still come to your home and pick up any other laptop and log in with his own username and password?
No.
No. Good. So this is called work group. So work group is when you buy something, this is all you're managing it. Nobody has control over it from different places. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
But
So,
if you go to the companies, give me 1 second, Ronald, let me finish this one thing. But if you go to the companies, right, they have thousands of desktops in one place, maybe 1,000 desktops in another places. They gotta have a server, and inside that server, it has to have an ability. That server needs to be a king out of all of the servers. It has this kingdom right there, and that's called what? Active Directory.
directory.
But that Active Directory, then what happened with that? That Active Directory is being managed by who? You and the systems administrator and the IT people, and that is where your main job in the beginning starts. That's your core skills that you need to learn. If you don't know about Active Directory, the rest of our training is all kind of like, I would say, it's not that useful, I would say. Because what you don't understand is the real thing right here. Everything comes after this whole domain network environment. So we're going to put a lot of effort to make sure you understand Active Directory, because later on you can learn so much from our resources, and you can learn from labs, and so much available right there. But this one thing, we're just going to make sure we feed that into your head very clearly. Okay. So Bernal, you got a question?
I think you answered. I was wondering, the work group then would be, let's say you go to Best Buy, you buy a computer, and you set it up, and then that would be your work group, personal, private.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that was my question, really.
Yeah, like, when you, like, in your home computers, you still have to enable like RDP and remote connections and everything for someone else to actually talk to you. But in this, environments, when you add a computer to a domain, an IT person have access to any machine inside that network. Even if I never logged into that machine, I can just go in there, put my username and password, and I'll log into that machine. Okay, and all of that stuff will make sense to you when we actually create this whole domain network right now in front of you, and you will be doing that in your lab as well. So if you are looking at a little bit more better answer, so on the right side it says what? Domain is what? A server called domain controller is required. Basically, it's a server, still it's a server. Physical or virtual, it doesn't matter. You put a 2016 or 2019 Microsoft Windows server inside that server, you install everything, but still you gotta make it a domain controller. So there's a step in there, okay? So in that step, what are we creating? We're creating an Active Directory. So right now, even if you don't get this much, that's fine. But what I'm gonna do later on, I'm gonna ask you guys what is a domain controller. So you're not gonna tell me that domain controller is a server. You're gonna tell me a domain controller is a server which has what? Active
Directory.
And an Active Directory is what? The Active Directory is a centralized management for all of our users, desktops, everything. Does that make sense?
Yes. I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I have an issue with my laptop and I take it to the IT person and I haven't logged in. Can he get into my account without even me providing my username and password?
In your office or your home?
Yes.
Oh, office. Okay. So yeah, so in the office, you're gonna call, and let's say you call. Usually, what happens is laptops are docked inside the docking stations, right? They have a connection going in there, right? So IT person will come to you, say, okay, what's going on? And you're like, okay, there's an issue going on. But if you don't provide a username and password, they cannot log in as you. But what they can do, they can go to the Active Directory and reset your password, and then they can log in to that password. But if you don't give them the password, they cannot see your password.
Oh, okay.
But again, they can log into that machine anytime with their credentials as an administrator, so they can access anything they want to in that machine. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? Because let's say if you have an issue with installing a software and you're not available, you went to a meeting and you call your IT help desk, and that's what you do most of the time, right? You're working, you have a meeting, you call your help desk, and then, hey, when is your meeting? Can I come when you're in the meeting, because that's going to be easy for me? So the person comes in, they log into your machine, they install everything for you. You didn't give them anything. They had all the rights. Because of what? Because of Active
Directory.
So in my training, I'm going to be throwing this term again and again, so then you become more of a proper IT professional. When you say something like that in the interview, that makes sense to them, okay? It's more of like you're impressing somebody. You're not talking about, so there's something in domain controller, right? You're not like scrambling, right? You're going to be saying, oh, yeah, domain controller is Active Directory. I know about it. This is where people manage server. This is where I did my whole lab and everything. I created a whole thing, everything. You're going to be like fluently talking about it, okay? So, okay, so coming back to our story, we always are going to be in the story. So one thing I want to ask you guys, so far, are you guys understanding so far? Because I know in the beginning, everything is little left and right, and I want to bring you guys to this whole story. Does it make sense to you so far, to you guys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, good, because the story has to make sense. We are in the story right now, right? So right now we hired you, and what happened here now? The CEO told Danish, let's say I'm the systems administrator, that we need a domain controller to manage all of these machines right here. So this is where we're going to come over here, and this is where basically what Danish is going to be given a job right here now, that Danish, can you go and get me a server, a physical server, then you can put a virtual server on top of it. So I went and I called Dell. Dell is like, okay, we're going to give you a one big physical server where it has a lot of memory and everything. What do you want on top of that? Do you want Microsoft server or do you want a VMware? So remember these names too now. VMware is a vendor that's top in the virtualization. So I say, no, I'm not going to go with Microsoft here. I'm going to go for virtualization. I'm going to go for what? I'm going to go for VMware, okay? VM right here, VMware right here. Look on the top right here, VMware ESXi. This is what we are going to install on that server. So let's say I went in there, I got my stuff from Dell, I got my USB, I plugged it in, and I installed this whole operating system about virtualization. So you must be thinking, Danish, do I really need to learn about this stuff too? No, this is not your level skills right here. You just need to know about it. But if you do want to learn more, I have a whole playlist on YouTube, which I'm going to share after the training. So one thing I like to do is, if this is not your skill, I'm just going to stop you right there. I'm going to say, Leila, no, you're not going there. First, we got to learn the basics. Then once you go a little bit further, then I'm going to give you a playlist in something or a lab in something to make you slowly progress into more advanced things. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So, okay. So now when we go in there, I was given a task. So I bought the server, I put a virtualization in there. Then they asked me, okay, how do we manage these old machines, Danish? So I'm going to say, you know what, CEO, what we need to do is we need to install a Windows server. Windows Server is an operating system on this virtualized environment, and we're going to basically call this a domain controller, DC, whatever, domain controller 100, domain controller 200, domain controller 300, whatever I name it, right? So after this, when I do this whole thing is done, then I have done what? I have created a domain network in my company, right? Then my CEO is going to ask me, okay, you asked for a person and we hired Leila or Eddie or Bernal, we hired them. All of them are hired. What do you do now next? I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to create their accounts in the Active Directory and I'm going to give them a little training so then they can manage this stuff. Now, do you guys are understanding this whole story? Okay. So this is what we are going to do in this lab right now. The first thing is we are going to create a server. Remember, we're not creating a domain controller right now. We're just creating what? A server. So we're going to go in there and do this before Ali takes over, because you guys need to know what is a server and what is an operating system. There's a differences. You have to know that. So Ali's going to first teach you about what is a server, and later on when we get into second lab, Ali is going to teach you what is operating system and what is important for you to know in operating system. But first, before you even do that, in a virtualized environment, remember this is what? This is an empty hardware with VMware installed on it, but we have not installed a virtual server on top of that hardware. Is this clear so far?
Hold on, you said what, you install a virtual server on top of that hardware? That's what you just... Okay.
So look on the left side. What does it say right here?
Virtual
it says virtual machine. So to create a virtual machines in a VMware, and now remember, this is also a skill that you are already practically learning. So this is a hands-on for you. When you are watching this video, someone can ask you in the interview question, Leila, do you know how to create a virtual machine in VMware? Do you know what VMware is? You should be, after doing all these labs and everything, you should be able to talk about it, okay? So now you're going to say is, this is virtual machine. Where do I create a virtual machine inside the server? I click on create, right?
Yeah.
So now, to create a virtual machine, the first one I'm going to do is create a new virtual machine. So I'm going to click on next. So here we need to name it first. So the first one is we're creating a server, but it's a domain controller that we're creating. So we're going to give it something similar name, right? We're going to call it DC 100. Now, here's a thing, and I'm going to test you guys on this. If you created the same DC 100, you failed in listening to attention right here, right? So everybody, I'm going to give you a number right here. So Eddie, you are 200. Leila, you're 300. Bernal, you're 400.
400.
So make sure you write this down, and I'll put this in your project too. Eddie is 200, Leila is 300, and Bernal is what? 400.
400.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we're going to call our domain controller. So what in a virtualized environment, you need to also specifically say that, is this a Linux? Is this a Windows? Is this Mac? We're not discussing Linux here. We're not discussing Mac. That's not a part of our training. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to click on OS operating system family of what? What are we doing here?
We're picking operating system, no?
Which one?
Windows. We're going
Windows.
Yeah.
So the
Microsoft.
guest operating system is called, then what are we installing here? Are we installing an operating system Windows 10 or server?
Server.
Perfect.
Server,
The
right?
only availability in this system we have is 2016, but it doesn't matter. We have actually 2019 in this system. But if this is not showing up here, that means we just don't have the updated virtual server, the virtual operating system here. That doesn't matter. We're going to pick what? 2000?
Yeah, 16 and 64 bits.
We're going to pick 2016. And then you're going to click on what? Next. So here's in your lab, you're going to see what? You're going to probably see 250 GB or something like that, just one data store. You're not going to see two data stores, or maybe you might see two data stores. It doesn't matter. You can pick one over here, but make sure you remember that which one did you use, okay? So we're going to pick this one, data store 1, okay?
Okay.
So what is a data store, by the way? Like if you see something like this, if somebody asks you in an interview question, what does this mean? What is a data store? What are you thinking about this, guys? If this is a hardware,
Is that?
if this is a hardware, and I buy this and I tell Dell that I need 250 GB space in this hardware, what is that called in virtualization?
Data store. Data.
Data store. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, or data, right? Not, yeah.
So if I put one hard disk, that's data store 1. If I put second hard disk, that's data store 2, right?
Okay.
So this is the whole amount that you get from our training. I think you guys get about 300 or 250 GB. You guys can confirm it. It's around that, and it's enough for all of your labs, okay? So we click next, and this is the most important part in virtualization. And why I love virtualization and why you will appreciate it now is because of this reason. As you can see, in virtualization, you can specifically say that for this specific virtual machine, I can give it how many CPUs?
Ooh, you said 2, yeah. Or 1.
I can go up to
8.
8.
But if your main server has 8 maximum, will you give one virtual machine the max?
No, you can't.
No, right? You're going to crash your whole thing, right? So 2 CPUs is more than enough in a CPU world. In a virtualization world, you never run out of the CPU. You always run out of what? RAM and space. CPUs these days are very powerful. It can run thousands of machines inside the virtual environment. But what you're going to run out of is what? RAM and space.
So is 2 the standard number, or you can give it
Two
more
is the
than that? Or less? Okay.
2 is a standard that can work easily. Like you will not have any issues. Now, why would we need more CPUs? Because sometimes, people have SQL servers. It's a very data heavy, like, it runs a lot of data stuff in there. So some people may beef it up to 4 if they really want to use that heavy stuff on that server. Okay?
Yeah.
So how much memory is this right now? If you look at it, what is 4096 MB? What does that represent? GB.
4 gigs, roughly.
4 gigs, that's good. So my recommendation for you is to keep it 4 gigs for a domain controller. Later on, if we find an issue with this, you can always come and change memory in there. Now, this is the beauty of virtualization, Leila, and if you guys are new to virtualization, can I do this kind of quick changing in the real hardware like this? If I'm running a machine, let's say a Windows operating system, Windows 10, and I feel like, oh, it's so slow. Can you just get up and just open a machine and plug in a RAM if you don't have it? Can you just do that? If you don't have it, you don't have a RAM, you can do nothing, right?
Yeah.
And think about the time that you're going to invest. You're going to open this thing, you're going to put the RAM in there, you're going to restart this whole thing, and you have to make sure you buy it and all that stuff. This is why we love virtualization. This is why we love IT now, is that I can go to this machine and change the RAM instantly. How cool is that? Like if I feel like this is slow, I can give it an 8 GB RAM, no problem. Boom, the machine is running fast. If I'm running out of this, yeah.
So
go ahead.
you can do that on the fly. You don't have to shut it down, start it back up.
Okay, so inside the RAM, it may not be possible, but some places, if you have a system that's designed for that, then maybe it's possible. But most likely RAMs, you need to restart the machine. But the hard disk, you don't need to restart the machine. So I'll give you a scenario. I was working on a server, and all of a sudden I started getting calls and say, hey, Danish, we're running out of space and we're having a lot of issues. So I looked at it, the server was, let's say, 40 GB space right here that you guys are seeing in that. And I see that, okay, what can I remove from this server to make it work? So I looked at it, all of these are important information. So I could not remove anything. So now you tell me how much of a headache that would be if I was using a physical server like this. I can't just go to that server and plug in a new drive and expand it, right? I need to plug in an extra drive and make sure that also works. But what if that operating system is running on the main drive and that main drive is running out of the space? Like where your boot system is running, where your operating system is running, and that ran out of space. I can't just go and plug in the new drive, right?
Yeah.
So the coolest thing about virtualization, even if this 40 GB is our main operating system drive and it ran out of the space, I can come here and I can make it 80. I'll go to the machine and expand it, and my problem is solved without nobody even noticing.
Oh, wow, that's easy.
Do you like virtualization now?
Yes. You don't have to open up the whole thing to put more.
Yeah, and to be honest, in terms of learning, this makes our job more fun, more easy, less stressful, because now we have the ability like this. And that's why I started with virtualization in your training to make you understand that this is the current techniques, this is the current skills. I'm not going to teach you something that is A+ of 5 years ago kind of thing. That's not happening these days anymore. So my training will not work that much now, right? This is what you need to be focusing on. If you really want to move up into IT very quickly and make that money, that's what we're doing these days, okay? So now, here's a trick right here though. If you are following this, and let's say you click on next, I guarantee you that you're gonna call me back that, Danish, I got stuck. You told me that I can come back here and change it to 80, but it's not happening. It's not working. Why that's not working, there's a virtualization, we have this hard disk options in here. You're gonna expand that, you need to make sure it's thin provision. Now, here's something that we don't need to go into virtualization that much, but thick is when you say that I want to use 40 GB of that data store, and it basically captured the 40 GB of that data store, and you cannot expand it inside like that. You understand what I'm saying? So it captures the whole size of that disk. Thin is like it's a virtual disk, and you can always come back and expand it. So we always prefer you to use which option? Thin. Okay.
Provision, yeah.
So thin provision. Now we're going to go down a little bit. We're going to skip some of these things because that has nothing to do with your skills right now. So another most important thing is this network right here. You always make sure that your network is connected, and it's always by default connected, so you're not touching that. That's more of a network engineer, a sysadmin doing that for you, so you're not touching that. Which you need to be very much involved in is this CD section right here. Now, this is a very important part right here. In a virtualized environment, if we have to install a virtual operating system, how do we install it? Does that, like, something, what comes into your mind right now? Like, how do I install an operating system on top of this hardware? How do I install that operating system?
I thought this always confused me, the CD/DVD drive. Do we got to get an ISO file somehow? And
Oh yeah, you got
too
it
much.
right there. So what is ISO file?
I know you get it from the vendor, you download it, and it's like I know it's like I know it's
Okay, so that's a
installed.
good point right here, because you can do it two ways. You can plug in the CD or the USB into the physical drive, and then you have to pick the host right here, this option, right? But think about it. You don't have, this is one hardware that somebody buys, and that's in a data center somewhere in a second or third or sixth floor. Are you going to really walk up there for virtual machine? Every virtual machine that you install, you're going to walk up there, change CD for each and every virtual machine. Just say you have 50 virtual machines. Are you going to do that for each and every machine? No, right? So you're going to use what? You're going to use the second option. It's called what? Data store ISO file. ISO is like a virtual CD. So we have a CD in a physical. You all know what is DVD and CD, right? How it looks like, right?
Yeah.
So now what happens today, in today's world, people don't send you CD. Remember when you bought that laptop now, recently, they didn't give you a CD with you.
All right.
Nobody gives CD or DVDs these days, right? It's a built-in recovery in there. But if you have to install an operating system from Microsoft now, so I'll give you an example here. You guys are seeing my screen?
Yeah.
If I need to download an ISO, or let's say server operating system or Windows 10 from Microsoft, and I want to do a trial version, or I even want to download and buy it directly from them, they're not going to send you a CD. They're going to send you a file which is called ISO. So I'm going to basically type this Windows 10 Enterprise. Actually, I want to do this trial. I want to see which one they offer. I always mess up this name here. Trial ISO download. My spellings are always bad, guys, so forgive me for that. So here you go. Windows 10 Enterprise. You see that right here? When you click on it, look what's going to happen. It's going to take me to the Microsoft site. And the Microsoft is offering what right here? Right from the first page. They're saying what?
ISO Enterprise.
ISO Enterprise.
ISO. So that ISO, I already downloaded it into your server, is right here. This is exactly the same ISO from here. You got a 90 days access, but we already uploaded it. How? I downloaded it into my machine, and then how did I upload it? By clicking on this upload icon, and I put that file inside your server. Well, all of you have these files in your server. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little bit.
So my job is to install, as a systems administrator, that first server. Now, the reason I say as system administrator is I'm going to keep a distinguish between these two things, that you are not going to be doing this example that I'm doing in your job, but by you looking at this whole thing, by you doing it, you have a back-end knowledge of how things were created in the first place. So you become very good at troubleshooting when you land a job. You're not like clueless, right? A lot of people in A+ trainings and stuff like that, they don't teach this stuff. So when they land a job, they're like, I don't know anything about that data center, but I'm working on this issue. So they go online and they spend so much time and they're stressed and everything. Later on, they want to learn the stuff that I'm teaching you today now, right? So you also need to understand that some of the things you're not doing it, but practically, like in the lab, you're doing it, but in the real world, you're not doing it. So it's good for you to understand that, oh, at least I'm not doing this stuff. This is little advanced stuff. I'm not doing it, but I understood it pretty nicely now. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Question.
Huh?
Danish, are we going to be doing we're going to be picking the memory, and
100%. You're gonna be doing all this stuff. This is the hands-on course.
all right.
Okay. Here's the thing. When I train people, and the last day I tell this one thing, and I'm gonna tell you guys now, that I don't offer support in the training if you don't go to your recordings. The reason for that is this: you don't want to be going into this labs because this is an open access. It can lead you to extremely different things. And you may be asking me, what is that? What is this? What is that? Without going through your recording, we will never be ending this training, and we're going to do back and forth. It's going to lead to stress on your end and my end, right? So the first thing you need to do is to watch this video all over again. And it's going to be long videos. So that's why you have this 1 week gap in there, right? So you're going to be just following exactly what I did on your domain controller. on your number, like DC200. That's what you're going to be using, right? And you're going to be following exactly the same steps. So this way, when you do all this one time, when you do all this stuff, that's it. You got a lot of knowledge right there. Then you're going to get into phase 2 for more detailed knowledge. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
So that's how basically kind of like, yeah, this is going to be very hands-on at the end. That's what you're going to be completed. That's what you're going to have to show me. All of you will have a domain controller by the next week. I need to look at it. I need to go in there to make sure I can get in your domain controller, so I know that you know what you're doing. You understand what you're learning right here, okay? So here, what are we installing here? Are we installing a client right now? What are we talking about? Are we talking about server or client? Client is a Windows 10 operating system, by the way.
Windows 10 client, I think. Windows
Server.
10 is a client. No?
Yeah. But we're installing what right now? Who is doing the job right now? Sysadmin or you?
I think you said sysadmin is doing this.
Sysadmin. So we're gonna pick what? Server here. So we already picked the ISO now. Remember, we changed it from host to ISO. And then we're gonna click next and finish. So, did we install the server?
Not yet, right?
DC10.
What do you guys think? Layla, did we install the server?
I don't think so.
Berno?
Yeah, it looks so. DC100, that's you.
We installed it that quickly, and where's the operating system installation?
Wow.
So no. You guys are right. Layla and Eddie, both of you are right. Berno, if you look at it, we just created what? We created a template. We didn't create nothing right now. We didn't install operating system yet, right?
Okay.
So this is the most important part right here. In a virtualized environment, you created the template, but you haven't done an installation right now. In a real world environment, you're going to bring a CD, plug it into this system, and then you do what? Installation.
Okay.
In a virtual environment, you got the ISO, plugged it into that virtual environment, and you got to do what? Installation. So now, somebody can ask you an interview question. Do you know how to install a server operating system in virtual environment? This is the answer that you guys are seeing right now. Now, you're going to click on it, and how do I power it on? Look at this right here on the top right here, power on.
Yeah.
But here's a trick in this, right? You guys need to remember this, and a lot of my live members get stuck over here. Once you click on power on, you gotta be quick. So I'm gonna do power on, you're gonna click on console. If I'm not quick enough to open this browser right here, it says open browser console. How do I see this virtual environment? Look at that. If I'm not quick enough, what happened?
Goes out to
so usually when you install an operating system in a normal desktop, you plug in the CD, right? So when you restart the operating system by doing F12, you say, I want to restart this machine from what? From a CD or USB, right?
Yeah.
So when you do that, what does the system tell you? That we detected a CD, please press enter if you would like to
install the CD.
Proceed.
Install the operating system, exactly. So when this happens and you don't click inside that, you have to click enter on your keyboard. You have to click inside this black box and you have to enter inside the keyboard. So if you don't do that, then you have what? You have this message.
Okay.
Now, how do you go back actually? So we're gonna go to actions, and these are the kind of like, I'm also kind of training you on how to actually use virtual environments, okay? So you're gonna click on actions right here, and you're gonna go to the power, and you're gonna do what? Reset.
Okay.
So as soon as you reset, you see the black screen will come back up again, and now I should see that again. Look on the top, what is it saying?
You then can keep the CD.
And I enter my keyboard, right? I clicked in the black box, and I just click enter. Are you guys okay or confused or anything? Leila, what do you think? You look confused.
I'm just trying to process what's going on right now.
Okay, so one thing you got it right is that this is a virtual systems inside the operating system. We're trying to install an operating system right now inside that virtual environment. Does that make sense to you so far?
Yes.
So we are installing a server operating system, not a Windows 10 operating system. Because for us to create a network and to create a domain controller, to create that king, this is the king. We need to create the king first. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, we are basically installing server operating system. Now, the installation of an operating system is very easy and simple throughout, everywhere. Even if it's a Windows 10 operating system, you're doing the same process. Even if it's a Windows Server operating system, you're doing the same process. Now, you must be asking me that as a level 1, will I ever install a server? Probably no. 90% of the time, you will never touch a server. So that should make you something at ease, Leila, that this is not something you're going to be installing at your work. But exactly like this, you're going to be installing operating system, which you also will learn later on. So it's exactly the same process.
Okay.
So, and we're gonna go over all these scenarios because what will happen? We're in what? We are in the story right now. And the story is a real ticket. The tickets haven't even started. Ticket 1 is not even started. You're in a lab environment where things are getting created. So you see every ticket is what? Create a new staff member using AD. That's exactly what you're going to be doing. But for you to even process this in your mind, that create a new staff member using AD, what does that even mean? What is AD? You got to understand then that AD comes from your king right here. So that's why we're doing this. Does that make sense to you now? So everybody good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we have added a virtual machine and we're installing an operating system, we're going to click on next right here and click on install now. So right now we're installing a Windows Server 2019 from Microsoft. Okay. Most of the companies in their systems, when you go there, this is done one time and nobody touches this for a long, long time. And the systems administrator only manages these systems. So when you see this option right here, which option are we going to pick right here? Because we all are new to technology, we're going to use desktop experience right here, the bottom one. The top ones are for people who are really good at servers and PowerShell, and they don't need to see the GUI, and these are like the really cool technical systems administrator who knows what they're doing. They're going to be using the core version. So we're going to be picking the last version, last one over here, okay? So then we click next over here, and we accept the agreement, and we click next. So now, if we are installing this like a fresh operating system, which one should we pick? Upgrade or custom? Are we upgrading?
Starting from scratch?
Yeah, from scratch.
Second one?
Yeah, custom
because because there's no operating system already installed there, right? So we got to do what? Custom.
Okay.
So where is this 40 GB coming from? Where did we choose that?
On the
Eddie, that answers your question. You say like, am I going to do all this stuff? Look at this. The 40 GB is coming from because you have to give that amount of space, right?
Yes.
So you got to do that process that I've done in the beginning to see this information, or else you won't be able to see this, right? So after this, when I click next, the rest is very automated. You don't even touch it. Everything is just automated. It's going to take another 20 minutes to finish up. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to take almost let's say a 5 to 8 minutes break just to kind of stretch up and drink some water. So I like to do that. And then when we come back, Ali is going to come back and explain more about servers, because I know probably Leila is confused that what is server, what is this operating system, what is it, why do we use it, why do we need it? A little bit more detail is going to be shown by Ali now. So after 8 minutes, okay? So this way we can get into more zone into this whole technology, okay? Aberna,
yes,
Eddie,
sir.
so take 8 minutes break, stretch up, make sure you don't sit like this for a long, long time. This is going to be long training. So stretch up and then come back, okay?
Yeah.
So we have 8 minutes?
Yeah.
8 minutes.
Okay.
I'll see you guys 1:48.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, see you guys.
Something that other person's doing. You just want to learn from somebody who's smarter than you. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room, because that's just, you're not going to learn or progress. But when you enter a room with the smartest people, just start asking questions like, hey, what is this? And you know, don't be afraid that, oh, they're gonna think that you don't know anything. They, you know, they're obviously like, oh, this person is asking question. He's interested. He's not just sitting there and collecting money and paying bills.
And
He
then,
actually wants to
and
progress.
that's one side of it. When you find someone, right? What if you can't find someone in the beginning? So my when you say where's your motivation, what motivates you to do this, is that step ahead of what Hadi said. So that's step 2 right there, right? But before that, there's so much, there's so many things that are missing, and that's why you're taking this training, because you need that guidance. Basically, can you do this without me? 100%. But is it going to be fun? It depends on how you take stress, right? Can you do that without me by doing your own labs and all that kind of stuff? I'm sure if you spend many hours in your work, you're going to find labs, then you're going to find something else, you're going to find something else, and everything becomes together. But it requires a lot of effort. So we became more of a solution to this problem right now. What do you hear, Leila, when you go to YouTube? They say, I am a YouTuber, I'm going to show you this stuff. So we'll do, like, let's say 30 minutes video, which is great. A lot of people love it. But then the YouTuber will say that, go take that certification A+ to do full learning, because that YouTuber don't have the ability to sit with you or to give you the resources or have or partners or whatever it is. They don't have that ability. So we became more of a solution to this problem that a lot of people are facing right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we are back into our training. So far, this is what we did. So the reason I'm keep doing this little bit of theory in here, just to show you, because I really want to make sure that Leila and everybody else has a little bit more better answer, in a way that, okay, did you get it? Like, yeah, I get it now. Kind of like I'm getting to that point right now with you, Leila. Okay.
Okay.
So what we have done this is, so far we have done this. We have a company. In that company, we have multiple offices, and that multiple offices needed some type of management, right? Actually, am I even sharing my screen?
I was going to say, I don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, remind me that sometimes if I can go really far, I'm like, oh, are we even recording it?
Yeah, we're good.
So Leila, this is what's happening, right? So we have a company, we have offices right here, but that offices are work groups right now. There's no management, right? So my CEO told us that we need a server. A server was then created, right? We bought that server. We brought it into a company, and in that server, we are installing what? 2019 operating system, right? And that's what I did right now. I put a 2019 operating system in here. So that server becomes a management server to manage all of these systems inside my company. So next time, if you have an issue or somebody call you from this office that, Leila, I lost my password, or can you reset my account? Then you're not running around to their machine physically. You can simply open up a system in that server and you can reset their password. So is that getting clear a little bit more?
Yes.
Okay. So now this server that we are installing, you need to know a little bit knowledge about it, that what is the difference between a server and an operating system? Meaning, when you use your desktop or laptop at home or work, that's what? That's a client operating system. But for someone to manage that machine in your work, that has to be what? A server. And then specifically inside the server, you have Active Directory, and all these things will come in future. So Ali, are you there to kind of explain what server is a little bit more, and then we can move forward?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, so now Ali will take over, and he will be basically explaining what the server is and all that, okay?
All right,
Ali,
so
I'm stopping my screen. You can take over.
sure. So guys, let me know when you see my screen.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing a blank screen. Oh yeah, we're good. Yeah.
Colonel?
Yes, sir. I'm seeing you now.
Right. So currently we are on the practicelabs.com platform, and here, we have this virtual system that Danish already introduced you, the virtualization. And let me show you the lab, which I open currently. When you get logged into the practice lab, it will take you on this vendor-based courses. And on the right, you have these devices. So I just select randomly the CompTIA A+ and operating system types and features.
Ali, just one thing before they get confused. Leila, Eddie, and Bruno, you guys are watching this video, his lecture, for understanding right now. You don't need to get into a practice lab right now, okay? Because you're going to
Okay.
be working on your own server. So this is just to get the understanding of what the server is, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. So here, if I show you the topology and the diagram of all these connections, here it is. We have four machines, the client machines, PLAB Win10, the Win10 machine, the PLAB CentOS, the Linux machine, Windows 8 machine, and Windows 7 machine. And the one here is PLAB TC01, it's the domain controller. This is the king, all right? This is the machine that have the Active Directory and all the powers to manage, to monitor, to serve services to the client machines. So what is making this machine different from the rest of other machines like the Win10 machine, Win8 machine, Win7 machine? And the reason is the server operating system. Because, you know, when you have the domain controller in your environment and you have client machines too, so there must be a difference in controlling things, in monitoring things, because if all the machines have the same client operating system, so how you can manage things, how you can apply policies, how you can even control their experiences. So the thing offered by the Microsoft in the separate solution called the Windows Server Operating System. And these are designed to control client operating system, to manage operating system, or even apply some policies and restrict the client different accesses. So here I have this Windows 2016 server, and if I further right click there to check my current operating system details, so what I need to do is just right click on the Start Charm, and it's going to look like that, and I will go to the system. And there it will show me the current operating system that is on the machine, and it is the Windows Server 2016.
So in an interview question, people can say, okay, Ali, can you close this screen right now? Close the Windows, yeah, close that. In the interview question, Leila and Adi Bernal, they can ask you this question. By looking at this and you have the access to this machine, can you tell me, is this an operating system 10 or is this 2016 server, whatever that is? Can you tell me what this system is? They may ask you that to show it to me, right?
Both client and the servers look like the same, so how you can differentiate?
Exactly, they look like the same, right? Your operating system like 10 and the server both look like the same. So how would you tell them to, hey, okay, this is what you need to go, this is where you need to go and to find that, is this a server or not, or there's a command too. So that's some kind of, keep that in mind. And I am jumping in the middle to just kind of remind you the interview questions, so then it makes it easy for you when you're watching this video. Always keep a note of this type of questions that they will ask you for interview, okay?
Okay.
So what is the procedure? Right click on the Start Charm and open the system panel, and it will directly show you that you have Windows Server 2016, or if you have a client operating system. So when we have a controlling thing, like as you have the workgroup environment, you don't need any kind of administration from a single point. But when you have a domain system in your network, so you're definitely creating a centralized controlling. And for centralized controlling from a single point, so you must have the server operating system, because the server operating system is there to offer services to the client, right? So it is built-in feature that you will use on requirement to fulfill the client queries. So let me show you what 2 or 3 things that make different this server operating system to the client. If you click to the start, so there you will find this Windows administrative tools. If you further click over it, so it's gonna provide you all the administration tools that you will not find in the client operating system. And the number one thing is Active Directory. To manage users, to manage domain, to manage forest and other kind of domain terminologies, all are in it in Active Directory. So the main and the top feature of the server operating system is to manage users. And
now, if you look at this screen, the Active Directory user as a computer is kind of like your job right there. So later you may get a call that I'm locked out. Can you unlock me? So this is the stuff that is already provided to you. In your lab, we're actually creating this stuff, right? But when you start your work, this will be provided to you. You're just going to go into your machine, you'll log in, and Active Directory users and computer is going to be there. Ali will click on it. Ali, can you double click on that right now? And you see, you will open an application like that, and then you will be troubleshooting your users, right? So they're going to call you, you're going to find a user, and you're going to say, okay, Eddie, are you locked out? Okay, let me unlock you. So you're just going to basically go and start doing that. And you're going to do all the training on this with us. So that's just to show you what server can do right now, to understand that this is a server feature. This is not a operating system feature, okay?
then the second thing in the administrative tool you will find is a group policy management. And this is a separate whole topic, and it is so huge in learning and in exploring. And through group policy, you can apply certain policies over your user, and you can control even everything, every single functions of the client operating system, you can control through group policy. And we have a separate class on day after, so we will completely work over this group policy, and we'll show you what it is and how we can define policies, how we can edit policies. So this is another feature that make it a Windows Server operating system, because it has the group policy management. Because in your client machines, you have local policies that are only related to that specific machine. But when you have the server operating system, you have group policy management, because you're managing group of machines. That's why it becomes group policy management. And through you can control, you can design even a frame, a restricted access for your users. Like you can prohibit your user to use their recycle bins, their folders, their wallpapers. So you can define each and every parameters for your users. And another major difference in the server operating system and the client is the server manager. And if you click over it, so it's going to provide you a single monitoring interface. Through you can manage your server activities, you can further add roles to your server, and you can do a lot of things related to your management, monitoring, or controlling. So this kind of provide you a more feel like a king, because this is the interface where you can do all sort of managing and monitoring things. Like you have this add role and feature. If you further click over this to add another role to this server, and if I proceed to next, let me show you the roles we have in the server. So these roles are only found in the server operating systems, because all are designed to serve client, right? These roles are nothing to do with the client operating system, because these are the features that client query for. These are the kind of services that really need to manage client, to respond client. So these roles make difference between the client operating system and the server operating system. And when you go over about the Active Directory and start installing, you will easily and quickly understand how the server operating system is different from the client, because you need to add the Active Directory role in the server. Then all users get integrated with that server Active Directory, and then you can manage all sort of things from here. Like go to the tools, you will find this Active Directory users and computer, the domains thing, and the DNS and other kind of group policies also there. And all the server related products are available here. You just only open when you need or when you want to do something with the feature. So this is the main and major difference between the server operating system and the client. Client is, simple operating system. It is designed for the user, for the consumer. Like you can just open your simple options. If I further right click there, so all the options related to the management and controlling is just related for the local machine, for this specific machine. These options are nothing to do with the group of machines with the other client machine. So all the
Now
options,
you must be thinking that where, in terms of your job, where are you going to be working mostly? So as a help desk level 1, you're mostly working on a client systems, right? So, because this is what the users are going to be using. Their machines, they're going to have issues with that Windows 10. They may have a call for you to, can you fix something for me? Or can you run a command on this machine? So most of your work is going to be on the client machine, which is Windows 10 that he's showing, right?
like
So
here on the setting tab, you have all the settings related to this specific machine. But in the server operating system, you can control even all the settings for your clients, like display, sound, power, sleep. So there is a huge difference between the client and the server operating system.
all right, so I think I can take over from here. Did you guys get the point for the server? Is this any question about the server?
I have a question, but
Yes.
it might be too much for what we're covering. I saw that DNS was not, so DNS is what, a role in the server? It's not its own separate thing. It's a feature in server?
It's basically a role in the server, but you're not you can actually install DNS on a separate server as well.
Oh,
You can
okay.
install, you can even put DHCP on a server, but that's of course a little bit advanced stuff. At
Okay.
this point, who's going to give you these roles? Who's going to create all this stuff? This is going to be a systems administrator getting all this thing configured. But why is it important for you? Because when you work in a technology, you got to know how everything is working, and they're going to ask you this in the interview. So
Okay.
I mean, and right now you don't need to stress about it. The reason for that is right now you just need to know the whole system to understand and do your labs and everything to get the idea. But when you get to phase 2, that's where a video will pop up and the guy will be like, what is DNS? DNS is this. And they're going to, like, the boring video is going to be there, right? And then they're going to make you do some labs out there in DNS. So there's going to be a lot of understanding and theoretical stuff later on. The reason for that, we don't want to bombard you with that stuff ahead of the time, because then this training serves really that, it's not that beneficial then. You learn a lot of stuff from us. You mentally break it down in 4 or 5, this four days of training, you're mentally just get into it. At the end, everything is going to make sense to you. Then when you start phase 2, you're going to learn everything about DNS, DHCP, IP addresses, everything in a very detailed method, right? And that's the phase that things are going to start making more sense to you. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So Ali, you can stop sharing your screen. I'm going to do the server part, and then you're going to come back to the client again, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so let me start sharing my screen, and we're going to go back to our lab. So this is where we are right now, right? You guys see my screen, Bernal? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Customize settings.
Okay, so now what did we do before this? Remember, it was a server was running installation, and we just left it. We told you, look, it's going to come back up again.
Yeah.
So to not waste their time, we added Ali to explain you the server stuff, right? So this is what we are creating right now. We're creating that server, and Ali already had access to that server. So that's where a lot of people get confused. When we give people server access, like way in the beginning, how did you get this server? What is server? So now that should be clear right now. Now, here is a very important piece for you. When you are doing your lab, make sure all of you are using the password that I am going to share with you for everything. If it's like if it's this area where you went in here, right here, whatever password that I shared right here, make sure that you keep the same password all over your labs. It's going to be very confusing if you use different password and you forget it. You won't be able to get in. Nobody can help you. Even we can't help you because we are not the admins of your lab inside the lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you keep the same password all over. So when you're listening to this video again, just make sure to keep a note with that. So right now I'm going to go back and I'm going to give this a password in this server. And now we're going to start learning about some of the things that generically gets created. So the first thing is that it says all control delete in a virtual environment. Can I just go and type all control delete on my keyboard? Will that help me in this environment?
No.
So where do I go to do all control delete in this? Actions. In actions, you're going to go where? Guest OS. Send keys, right? So it's going to send that keys out there. Now, this is only required for server, by the way. You don't need to do that for a Windows 10 operating system, because in the Windows 10 has a neat ability. You click in it and it just comes up, okay? So now you tell me, all of you, is this a domain controller yet? I know this is a server.
I don't think so. You have to create one.
You got to create it.
Perfect. So if I log into this machine, I'm logging into a 2019 server operating system right now. Is that clear so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now what Ali was showing you, if this shows up like that, and somebody put that in front of you in the interview, and the first thing is that if they show you just like that, and you see that server managers comes up, that's what? That's a server right there, right? It's not a Windows 10 operating system. But what if somebody cancel this and let you look at the screen, and let's say you're not seeing this text on the right side. Let's not cheat right here, okay? So let's say they don't have this text out there. How would you find that this is a server or not?
You wouldn't know.
Yeah. Right click on the.
How would you?
Where the start and systems.
You're gonna right click, Leila, right here on this.
Right click, systems.
System, exactly.
I will tell you.
And then it will tell you that, okay, what is the server right here? So where do I see that it's a server or not? If I come down, look at this, specifications, right?
Yeah.
I can even tell them that which version of that server. Why is it so important for you to know about the specification in your job? What if you're working in a company and you are the IT professional over there, like let's say you're working remotely for some big company, and the company call you that, Leila, you're working on that server. What is the version of that server? Now they expect you to know that, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to tell the person that I don't know how to do that, right? That's too basics. So you're going to say, you're going to go there, right click, and you're going to basically go to system and you say, oh, this is version number. But there's a command that you can use too. You can go to CMD. Now remember, any commands, most of the basic commands come from a command prompt, command line, which is all of the machines have this, right? The black screen, you go to CMD and it opens up, right?
Right.
So most of the things you can find from the command line, which Ali is going to show in the client version of his lecture, how to use the command line. So there's a command you can use, win, ver, that's it. Win, ver, V-E-R. If I enter, then what happens now? So if you were on the call and you got the message, hey, can you tell me what is the version of this machine? And if you don't want to go through the GUI, you can do what? Win, ver.
Go through the command line. Win, ver.
Win, ver. That's it. So now another command is very important right here. Extremely important. I don't think you can get away with this even in interviews. If anybody asks you what is the IP address of this server, what would you guys say?
The what? The IP address?
Yes, it's up at the top.
What command should I type?
IP config.
IP config.
Perfect. Leila
knows more than you let on.
I don't know. I see the IT guy doing it when I give him my machine.
So IP config, Leila, is something that it doesn't matter where you work, what level you're working on, you gotta be a super admin, whatever it is. If you don't know how to use IP config, you are not getting an IT job, right? If you probably heard it so many times in your job, like, you know, what is the IP of that machine? So you're calling a client or a member or staff member, the first thing you need to basically guide them in a very non-technical way. So you cannot just say, can you run an IP config on your machine to get an IP? And they'll be like, first of all, what is IP config and how do I do it, right? People get annoyed, right? Normal user like us will get annoyed, like, what are you talking about? Where do I go and type this first? Even though for us it's so simple, but for a new person, it is very hard to understand that they have to go to CMD. They have to open the command line, then type the IP config, right?
Yes.
So you got to be very non-technical. You got to be very calm, and you have to basically give them a right directions. So when we do IP config here, now you guys tell me what is the IP address of this server. Which one is the IP address here?
IP version 4, 192.168.
Correct.
Yeah.
So now you tell me which is the network address in this address. What is the network address?
Subnet mask. But we can't, hold on. No, it's not there. Link local, version 6.
192.168.
192.168.10
is it? I can't.
exactly.
.10.
That's the network address. So Leila, if you do IP config in your home and you see 192.168.1.3, so 192.168.1 is your network address. Okay? This is your network address. This is what your Wi-Fi router is giving you. Throughout your home, everybody is going to get .1 address because of that one Wi-Fi network, right? But what is the last one? What do we call the last one? What is this address? This is a host address, right? This is this machine right here. So you go to a street, you have a street number out there, but in street there are different houses, right? Right? You go to street A, in street A, there's a house 1, house 2, house 3. So this is a whole network is what? 192.168.10 is a whole street, street A, right? In the street, then you have houses. So in our network, this server has the address of what? 192.168.10.83. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah. I always got confused when they call it when they say, I know that it's, I think because it's convention, right? If you look at the subnet mask, which is getting a little beyond this, but it's 255.255.255, so it's like a class C.
Yeah.
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
I don't want to confuse Layla, but I know that, the first 3 parts but I always got confused when they called it a host. Because
the
when
host
we
is right
connect
here.
when we're the client, if I'm connecting to a server, then I'm the client, right? If I'm asking services.
Actually, you got to say it again. My headphones just dropped.
Oh, that I had always gotten confused with the convention of what is the host, which one's the client.
Yeah, don't worry about this one because in phase 2, you're gonna do a whole lecture on IPv4 and IPv6. It's a huge session, right? That's in phase 2, right? You're gonna basically actually do a practice on it too. You're gonna get a scenarios. So that's later on, and nobody at your level, at the entry level, nobody's gonna test you on something like this. They may ask you what it is. Some people may be a little hard on it, but most of the people know that this is not what help desks are good at. We all know that. Most of the help desk guys are not good at this stuff, right? They're not creating networks. They're not working on networking devices. They're not doing switching and routing, so they don't need this. But they still need to know what is IP, what is the host of IP. What if I call you today and I say that I want to, what is the IP address of this machine? So Leila just answered that. Well, you just basically do IP config. But a common question can be, is this a dynamic IP address or is this a static IP address? What am I talking about? Anybody know?
Depends on if you have the DHCP, right, giving out addresses.
Correct. And one more thing I want to add here,
Static.
the thing Danish told it host and the network is just kind of IPv4 terminology. It is nothing to do with the client and the server thing. It is just IPv4 terminology, what is host and what is a network part.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now if I ask you, if you're on the screen, Leila, and let's say you're working for a company and you're the IT professional over there in this company, and I'm the network engineer working in, let's say, California, and I said, Leila, can you tell me is this machine using a static IP address or is it using a dynamic IP address? What would you do then? Sorry for picking up on you. I'm just kind of like, the reason I'm doing this because in the training, when you guys are watching this, it's going to be very clear to you. Okay.
I am kind of confused.
Yeah, so you already know how to find an IP address, right?
Yeah.
And what was the command for that?
ipconfig.
Okay, so you're going to use the same command, ipconfig, and you're going to add more to it, because ipconfig is not just by finding an IP address. It can do way more than that, right? So we'll do ipconfig /. So whenever you want to find more now, you're going to do /, and what we do? All.
All. Is
So
that
you
a
see,
space,
yeah,
then
space
/all?
/all. Now watch what happens, Leila. So do you see more information than the last one?
Oh, wow, yeah.
So if I ask you now by looking at the screen, attention to detail, this is another thing that I like to do in my training. Is this a DHCP enabled? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So what we are saying is this right here. We have that domain controller that we are creating right now, or you have a network somewhere. In that network, there is a person sitting out there. I'm just kind of making a terminology like that, okay? There's a person sitting out there, person meaning like it's a device right now, okay? And it's saying that, okay, host number, what is our IP address here? Host number 83. They knocked the door that, okay, this host has just added, this name is what? DC 100. DC 100 just came and started knocking the door. And as the DC 100 is asking this device that, hey, do you have a number for me? And the device is saying, yes, I have 83 number for you. Here you go. Did you get that point? There's a device in the network that gives out numbers to these devices when they connect to the networks. So if you, let's say, for example, if you bring your laptop, a new laptop in your home, and you connect it to the Wi-Fi in your home, how does it get an IP address automatically? You don't do anything, right? You've never done that, right? So it gets an automatic IP address from what? Your DHCP provider in your network, meaning your router in your home. Let's say, for example, this is your Wi-Fi router right here. This is your Wi-Fi router. In this Wi-Fi router, there is this service called DHCP, okay? And then that DHCP service is giving out these numbers. So when you buy a new laptop, as soon as you plug it in and you connect it to this Wi-Fi network, it's asking, it's knocking, my name is Danish, can I get a number? Can I get an IP number? So this Wi-Fi say, yes, I have the number, there you go, without you even touching it.
Is DHCP in that router, or is it a service? I mean, is the DHCP in the router that we get from the internet? Is it in the?
So any router that you buy right now from online, like, or your home routers, comes with these services. DNS, DHCP, it comes by default, it's enabled. But in the companies, it's not that simple. You know, some people have to actually create this service in the servers because they want to manage it. They don't want to just release the IP address to anybody. I mean, it could be a hacker, right? Just come into your network, connect to your network, and boom, they got an IP address, right? They don't want to do that. So it has to be managed. And you also need to then understand that there's a lot of troubleshooting behind this too, because people can say, can you add a static IP address to this machine? We don't want this machine to be getting a dynamic address. So how would you do that, right? You need to understand that. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. And Ali's going to also do this part, but I'm just going to right click over here and go to properties. You see how I clicked on the little icon on the network right here? Mm-hmm. And then right click, then I clicked on open network and properties. And where am I going to go? Ethernet.
Ethernet.
And then I'm going to go click on change adapter options. So this is where your adapter option is. Most of the time when you're working in a company, you may get a call and they will say, Leila, can you put the static IP address in this computer? So what that question, the answer of that question practically is what I'm doing and I'm showing you right now. How do you put a static IP address in the adapter? Okay. So we're going to right click over here. We're going to go where? Properties.
Properties.
And then we're going to click on what? What are we using here?
IPv4.
IP4. IP4.
IPv4. That's where things are coming from. And that's another way for you to come over here and check, is this DHCP or is this static? So let's find out. So all of you tell me, is this DHCP or this is static?
DHCP. This is obtained automatically. I think.
Yes, DHCP is what?
Dynamic.
It's dynamically getting IP addresses from a server or anything, right?
Yeah.
So right now, look, what is the first option saying? Obtain an IP address?
Address automatically.
Automatically. So if you were to do a static IP address, if you were to give in a static IP address, what would I do here now?
After click that obtain IP and
I'm gonna click over
following.
here.
Yeah.
And now, so the most important part over here now, again, in your lab, in only your lab, you're doing this. In a company, they have already done that for you. You're not doing this. So all of you they're using your lab has to do this part, because without it, your domain controller will not work properly. Okay. So the IP address over here, we're not going to touch the dynamic IP address over here. The address that we want to change over here in this lab is what? The DNS address. And that's a little advanced for you, but just want to tell you that DNS, you are creating this domain controller, so you're basically creating your own network, so you got to have your own DNS. Don't need to get into there. Just kind of like follow this step right here, okay? So which IP address are we going to give over here in the DNS?
192.
If we were going to use the same server to give out an IP address and use the same DNS, we're going to use the same IP address of the server, right?
Yeah, 192, whatever.
Yes, you can do it that way, or another way is you can also use this 127.0.0. So somebody tells me, is this an IP address? If somebody asks you this in an interview, 127.0.0.1 is what? That's a local host address, okay? So as soon as you if you say that this is my computer name, Eddie1. So Eddie1 can also be logged in. Eddie1 can also be then kind of like the address of that machine inside the IP address is 127.0.0.1. So basically, you don't need to put a new IP address. If the IP address changes, it doesn't matter, because 127 is going to say, what is the IP address of this machine? I'm going to always use that. So you don't see that over here, but we can use it. Another way, you can always come over here to ipconfig and type ipconfig and just type the IP address of that. So what is the IP address of this machine? We can use this as well over here, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys get this point that 127.0.0.1 is not an IP address, it's a local host address that points to your server IP address. Does that make sense?
This is a local host. What did you?
Local host address. If somebody in the interview, basically they'll throw it to you. That's okay. What is the 127.0.0.1? What is that address? You're gonna say that's a local host address.
We can also say it a loopback address.
Oh, that's what it looked like a loopback. I was kind of okay, but it's so that okay.
Do different machines have different local host address?
No, all the machine has the same because what it's doing, Leila, is basically pointing to this IP address, so you don't have to change it if this IP address changed right here. You see this? So this loop address in every machine, if you do that, then it's going to point back to this. But in real world, you're not going to machines and putting the host address like that. It's only for this server. Oh, sorry. I'll keep dropping my headphones. Okay, so now another piece that I want you guys to remember, to do 8, add 8, another 8, another 8, another 8. This is a Google DNS address, just so we can route the internet to the Google DNS rather than ours. Now, you must be thinking, oh, this stuff is a little advanced for me. So another thing in IT is like this. Somebody will tell you to do something, and you're just going to follow that. So in your case, I'm giving you a ticket. Can you guys put this in the DNS address? You don't need to know anything about it. Does that make sense?
Danish, can I ask a question? So when you're putting in the 127 0.0.0.1. That's so, and then Hadi said, was it Hadi or Ali? I don't remember who spoke.
Ali, loop.
But when they said that's the loopback, so because we're on the server, that's the domain controller, and we want to use the DNS server, the DNS thing in our server, we use that loopback 127. So then we don't have to go look for 192.168
again.
Exactly. If you don't do that, then what will happen is that it's gonna start look who's my DNS provider over here. Because that DNS is about to get installed in
you're the DNS provider, right?
You are the DNS provider.
So I look, it's you're yourself. Okay.
So what are we gonna do is we're gonna say, okay, we finished that, and then that's it. We're done with that part right now. It's a very important part. The second most important part in this now is what? This is where a lot of people also get confused. If I ask you guys, what is the name of this server? What do we name this?
Do we do the command line, who am I thing?
No. Look at the, like, I didn't create any names yet, but look at that DC100 was the name, right?
Yeah.
But when you install an operating system, does that DC100 implied inside that operating system, by the way? It didn't. When you create a virtual template, that's just for you to name it right here. But if you go to the system, let's find out what's the name of this system. What is the name of this system?
Win.
So that's going to confuse the hell out of you, because you're going to say, hey, where's my server? I'm trying to look for pinging DC100, but I can't find it. Because in virtualization, when you create a template, that doesn't mean that it's going to go inside the operating system. When you install it, it's not going to change any names. You have to go inside the operating system and change the name, right? So another quick question for you is going to be, how do you change the name of the machine? This is very basic stuff right here, right? So we're going to click what?
Name this PC.
You're going to do rename. And all of you, if I ask you, Eddie, what are you going to name your machine over here? What will you name?
I don't do they have naming conventions that they tell you what?
I gave you the naming convention. Remember in your lab?
Was it well, you said we're gonna put
you're gonna put
DC 100. You're DC 100 or
I'm DC 100. You're gonna be doing DC 200. If you do DC 100, you fail.
Yeah.
So Leila, what are you gonna put over here?
DC 300.
Perfect. And Berno?
DC 400.
Perfect. So you guys are going to do that the way I'm doing 100, and I'm going to click next right here. So when you change the name in the system, what happens? You need to restart, right? Okay. But before restarting, what we're going to do is we're going to do one more change in the server, and that's the firewall, okay? We're going to basically turn off the firewall. So you're going to go to the firewall, and you're basically going to turn off. And you're going to be like, hey, am I really going to do that at work too? Not before asking somebody. Everybody have different firewall setting in the network level. So they may not even use a firewall that comes inside the Windows operating system generically. You're not doing this for your home firewall, by the way, or you're going to get hacked. We want to do that. In a network environment, they have security systems, and then they don't want to use the internal firewalls because it creates a problem, right? So here in your lab, the first thing you should do is to turn off the firewall. As you can see, both firewalls are on right here, right? So I'm going to go turn off and click here, turn off. Both these options are clicked here, right? And I'm going to click OK, and that's it. And I'm going to restart this server right now. So now, I want to ask you this question again. Is this still a domain controller?
I would think so.
Why? Does it have Active Directory yet?
No.
No,
we didn't install it yet. No.
We didn't do that. I'm going to keep testing you till you get this Active Directory thing so good in your mind that you're like, no, this is not an Active Directory. This is Active Directory. When you get to that point, then trust me, the rest of this training is a piece of cake, because you know your network is, like you're mentally, you know your network so much that you know where to go down, right? So that's why I'm going to keep asking this question again and again. So right now, this is not a domain controller. It's a normal server. We just changed the name. That's it. We didn't do much in here. We're just talking a lot, to give you information and everything, but still, this is not a domain controller, okay? Oh, what happened to my keyboard here?
Domain controller.
Okay, so now this is the piece right here where the systems administrator is going to go in there and say, okay, you know what, I'm ready. I'm going to create this whole domain network now, and I got this 100 machines that Eddie's going to be working on. You know, he's going to have a worse life, you know, nightmares with these machines. Let him do all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to be doing my stuff right here, right? So the system administrator is going to come over here and open a server manager. Basically, they're going to go to the server, start, and click where? Server manager. This is exactly what you guys are going to be doing, okay? So you're going to go to the server manager, and then once the server manager opens up, that's where the sysadmin, the system administration skills kicks in, which you're going to learn later on. If you feel like you like this training, later on, maybe after 5 months or 1 year, you can come back to us and we'll train you on this stuff too, okay? So you're going to wait for a little bit over here, and then to install Active Directory, where do we go? We go to Manage. And then what do? We click Add Role and Feature. So we are taking a crown, and now we're putting it on top of this king head right now. So that's what we're doing right now, just so you have a little understanding on this. This is becoming a king right now. This is becoming a domain controller in this network. So we're going to click Next over here, and then you see this is what? What are we adding here? Active Directory is what? It's a role. It's a role, okay? When I click Next, this is why it's so important to change the name, by the way. If you don't do this, and you do the Active Directory part right now with this win big name in there, your lab is going to be pretty tedious, right? So that's why the name change is very important. Restarting a server is very important, and then you're doing this process, okay? So then you're going to click on Next. Now, what do I pick right here to add an Active Directory domain controller in here? Which role should I pick?
Active Directory Domain Services.
Perfect. Active Directory Domain Services let you create the Active Directory in the server. So then you're going to click on Add Feature, then click Next here, and just click Next, and then click Next. And then click on what? Install. Now you must be thinking, do I really need to know about what you just did next? No, that's all sysadmin skills. So you're doing only this thing. Why are you doing this again? Because you need to know how this whole network was created in the first place. Make sense?
Yes.
So now I think, Leila, things should be a little bit clearing out to you at this point that where we are going with this, right? We need that. We need this person right here to manage our desktops. To be able, for you to be able to help other people, you need this right here. This guy right here has to be done, right?
Right.
But when you join a company, this is already done for you. So you never get to see this. This is a gray area for next year or something for you if you don't know something like this. It becomes a very hard process of learning IT when you just don't have that understanding or you haven't seen how the network was created in the first place, okay?
Right.
So now, this may take a second. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and let's talk about it.
So Ali, sorry, Danish.
Yes.
So when we leave here, we go back to the video, watch this video again.
Yep.
Right? And then throughout the week, we don't mess with the server yet till next week when we do that next training.
On Monday, from Monday, you will have access from today, by the way. You can, if you have the energy. I feel like after my training, honestly, I'm talking more. I'm not sure about you guys, but after my training, I'm dead basically. I'm like, you know, kind of like. So I don't know about you guys. So make sure you are doing this not to stress yourself. Don't push yourself too much. Like I said, you know, this server is with you for almost 30 days. So just watch this training slowly, and exactly first do what I'm teaching. Don't go left and right because that's where I'm going to be like, I haven't taught that stuff yet. It's in phase 2 yet. So it's going to become very confusing if you jump left and right and, oh, maybe you found something on YouTube. That doesn't make sense then, right? We don't want to go left and right here. So if you follow exactly what I'm teaching you, it's going to take you 1 week to only finish what I'm teaching you today. Even though I'm talking a lot, you may be able to finish it very quickly, but for you to do these things again and again, things are going to come up. Trust me, it's going to pop up again and again. Some of these new things are going to pop up to you, and you're like, whoa, okay, what is that? What is this, right? So you're going to start asking more questions, okay?
Nice.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So you see where we're at right now. This is one of, I think, on Job Skills Share. I think this is one of the labs in your Intro to IT class. And I had sent a ticket in to you guys. I had the hardest time when that orange triangle popped up. I followed I did the practice labs that are included. And man, I spent like 10 days, 4 or 5 hours a day redoing this up. I would click on the orange thing. So then it's a funny story. I called them up. I called you guys up. You said, well, we don't really deal the help lab. You have to call the practice labs company.
Yeah.
So they remoted in. They checked it. They said
really?
It was good. So then they remoted in, and then they said, you go do it. And the damn thing worked. And they said, well, they said and I just said, well, I don't know what I did. I don't feel like I did anything different.
I think Ali probably helped you in this too. Right, Ali? I think that was the same thing.
It was crazy.
Yeah, you know what?
Can you repeat the question? I just.
I think it was one of
the next part coming up. You'll see. Yeah. Right.
So here's the thing, guys. Practice lab is huge access, right? It has certification labs and everything. We don't have the manpower to serve 40,000 members to show them how practice lab is done while there's already documentation done for you. So we don't take responsibility for that. What we take responsibility is for what we are teaching. Basically, like if I'm teaching you how to do a domain controller and you get stuck that you cannot create a domain controller for some reason, then you need to ask me why it's not happening, you're missing something. I'm going to say, okay, go back to recording and tell me where are you in the recording. And by the way, this is another thing I want to tell you. When you're asking for support, you're going to basically do it this way. Danish, I'm watching day 1 and I'm on minute 30th. Okay. So because I have the recording too, right? So I'm going to go back to that 30th recording and then I'm going to say, okay, tell me why you're having an issue. And then I'm going, oh, you're missing that IP address right there. You see, this is very easy for me to troubleshoot things with you rather than you just randomly start saying things. It will make no sense, right? So you're going to have to tell me that Danish, I'm on day 1 and I'm following the recording on 30th minute and I'm trying to do that and I can't do it, right? Makes super sense then. Back to your questions. Of course, everything Test Out has their own support. It's like so deeply done. Everything is nicely done. But still, you may need a support or maybe something is having an issue or anything. So Test Out has their own support. Practice Lab have their own support. And this right here, the training, is the support that you're getting from us. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do we do now to make this a domain controller? What do you guys think? What should I do?
What was it?
I think you got to go to that orange triangle.
If I go to the orange triangle, then what do I click on?
Promote this server to domain controller. I'm guessing.
Do I really have to go to the orange triangle? Can I not do this from here?
I don't think so. I just.
Yeah.
Oh, there.
Eddie, look at it again. I just want to test you right here. Attention right here. Look at this. Attention right there. Promote the server to the domain controller. Now, this is the key part right here, guys. So we are creating what? Let's say, Eddie is a New York business on its own. You're creating your own business. So DC 200 is a business of its own. Layla, DC 300 is a business of its own. So you're creating the whole domain connect environment for this business. So we need to create a new forest. You don't need to get into this stuff right now, but when you're doing this, when you're clicking on new forest, you're creating a brand new domain controller for yourself, right? So what are we going to do right here? We're going to type what?
DC 100 for you, DC 200.
DC 100.
Well, you're 100, right?
DC.
I'm 100, but you need to put a full domain in there, right?
Okay, yeah, okay.
If somebody say that, what is your Active Directory domain name here? What would I say?
DC 100 jobskillshare.org.
Exactly. And I'm going to click next right here. This is another part. Remember, what password are you using here? All the labs should match, right?
Yep.
And then we click next here. This is a very important part coming right now. DNS, we talked about it, right? So domain controller, you cannot create it without a DNS. And by doing that loop address, Leila, by doing that 127.0.0.1 address, now we are telling the server to use your own DNS in the server. Don't use an external DNS outside. Use your own. So this server is going to also create what? A DNS server. Okay? So now, this is where you're going to just give it a few seconds. It's going to go out there and say, okay, NetBIOS, we're looking for that. And my NetBIOS, why is this 1000, by the way? Okay, so here's the thing. Keep it like that. I think you guys are going to see DC 3000, DC 2000 for NetBIOS. Okay. This is going to be something very important. You guys are going to come in. We're going to come across some issues here, and that's why I left it this way. Okay, so DC 1000, we're going to leave it like that. Okay, don't touch this part right now. Next. Remember, this automatically popped right there, right?
Yeah.
I didn't touch it, and I'm going to click next here, and we're done. It says, okay, this is the whole thing. NetBIOS is DC 1000. Click next. And now what we're doing right now, what are we installing?
What we doing?
Active Directory domain.
Active Directory. Remember, now we're going to switch the terms here. I'm not going to say too much domain controller here. We are installing what? Active
Directory domain.
Active Directory. We are putting a crown on this king. The king is becoming a real king because we're doing a ceremony. We're doing a ceremony that now, Mr. DC 100, you are the king of this whole network in this server. Does that make sense to you guys?
Okay.
So, while this is becoming a king right now, this is what we're going to do to end this training for today. We have created something very powerful, and if you come over here, look, it's almost done. So it's going to say sign out, it's going to restart the machine and everything, right? This is what we did so far. We started this company by asking a systems administrator, by first hiring you, we hired you, right? We did that part. Then we came over here, we assigned a system administrator that we need to create a domain controller. So a system administrator did the whole part and created a domain controller, right? This is right here, we're all the way right here now. And then we have we're basically telling the system administrator to add a help desk and create a Windows 10 machine for Leila, for Eddie, and for Bernal, so then they can come to work and then they can start helping our users. Did you guys get that point so far?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to minimize this. And once you see this, your server is getting restarted, it's going to take a little bit time because now, is this a work group server or is this a domain controller?
Domain controller.
Why is this a domain controller?
We have
You
Active
have
Directory.
Active Directory.
You have Active Directory. There you go. Perfect. I like responses now. You know, it's more like, yeah, you guys are getting it now. So this is like, okay, this is a domain controller, and it has an Active Directory. This piece is just so important. Once you guys get this, the rest of the stuff is becoming a step-by-step approach, and it's very easy for you to understand IT after this, specifically your job. I'm not going to make it that easy. It's not that easy, but still, it's like you get it. So any question while this thing is finishing up so far?
This is going to be your first lab. Go to jobskillshare.org. When you click on community portal, or it will automatically log you into the community portal like this. On the left side, move your mouse on top of Learn IT and click on Technical Blogs. Here you see that you have similar blogs that we have actually used in our training. So here, the first task for you in this lab is to finish 1.0, 1.1a, and 1.1b. You have learned in my video how to create a server, client, and a domain controller. So when you click on the first link, it will take you to the blog and now you can continue watching the blog. Step-by-step screenshots are provided. Now do know that some of the text or some of the visual may be changed because of the new devices or the new layouts. For that, you as an IT professional need to do a research. Go ahead and ask in communities after your research and figure things out, because that's the only way you will learn skills. So now you can complete these labs step by step, hands-on, and then after that you should watch the second day video, which is going to teach you more skills, and you will be given more labs to perform. You can use your home lab, for example, like a virtual box or anything that you have at your home. You can replicate this video and do the same practice. If you don't have this access, you can request Job Skills Share for a server. This is not a part of our membership. You'll have to buy this access, and we will give you a limited time server access where you can do these labs. Make sure to contact support for this type of access.